Fifine has been releasing some great budget-friendly microphones in the last year or so, and their AM lineup just got a new member in the AM6, a condenser microphone made for gaming that features a game and a chat blend knob, included pop filter, and built-in noise reduction. Is it as good as the popular AM8 dynamic mic? Let's take a closer look. Before we dive in, I want to mention that Fifine sent me the AM6 in exchange for an honest review. I was not paid to make this video, and Fifine has no input on my review. I do have an Amazon affiliate link in the description for you if you're interested in the AM6 and you'd like to support this channel. As I mentioned in the intro, the AM6 is a condenser counterpart to the AM8, which is a dynamic microphone that also has RGB lighting and a capacitive mute button. But besides being a different type of microphone, there are a couple of other differences of note here. The AM8 is a USB and XLR microphone, so you can use it with an audio interface in addition to the USB output, and both outputs do work at the same time, so you can actually use it with two different devices at the same time. I'll be including the AM8 here in our mic comparison a little bit later, but first let's cover the basics for the AM6 and run through some of our tests. All the audio in this video will be normalized to -16 LUFS with a limiter applied to prevent clipping, but I will not be doing any other post-processing, so you're hearing the raw audio recorded straight from the microphone into my MacBook Pro. The Fifine AM6 has a plastic body with RGB lighting inside the mic grill and around the bottom of the mic. A pop filter also comes pre-installed, and it mounts to a desk stand with a half yoke, but it can also be mounted to a boom arm. On the bottom of the AM6, you have your 3.5mm headphone output, RGB light control, and the noise cancellation button. Physical controls include microphone gain and headphone volume on the side, and a monitor mix knob on the front, which lets you blend between the AM6's two output channels, which are game and chat. On the top of the AM6, there is a capacitive mute button. Also in the box is a USB-C to USB-A cable. The AM6 features USB audio conversion up to 24-bit at 48 kHz and is compatible with Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. All right, let's start our testing off with an off-axis noise test here. So I'm going to play some gameplay sounds from Dragon's Dogma 2, which apparently is new. If your speakers were a little bit further away, here is more what that might sound like. And now let's test how well it handles plosives with the included pop filter and without it. Please pick my podcast. Please pick my podcast. Please pick my podcast. Please pick my podcast. Now let's try bumping the desk here. First, we'll do it with the boom arm mounting because that's where I currently have it and where I probably recommend having it so it can be closer to your mouth. This is on a Rode PSA 1 Plus, and I'm bumping the desk. It is mounted to this desk. And now we'll bump the boom arm to see how much of that it picks up. And we'll bump the microphone itself here, the pop filter. All right, and now the AM6 is on its included desk stand. So now the microphone is going to be about 8 inches away from my mouth instead of before it was about 5 inches away on the boom arm. Now it's going to be about 8 inches away from my mouth and pointed upwards. And here is what it sounds like with some desk bumps. We'll bump the side of the desk. We'll bump the top of the desk. Here's what that sounds like. Here's what it sounds like if I just bump into the stand or the microphone. And here's some typing sounds with the AM6 positioned about 9 inches from the capsule to the keyboard here. These are Gateron silver switches. Now here's some typing sounds with the AM6 on its desk stand and off to the side of the keyboard. Now it's going to be even further away from my mouth, so it's likely going to be picking up more of the typing noise compared to my voice. And now here's just one more position for the microphone on the desk stand with keyboard sounds. So now it is in front of the keyboard, position pointed at my mouth, and it's about 12 inches away from my mouth now. This is likely going to pick up more keyboard sounds than having it on the boom arm. And lastly, we're going to test the noise reduction feature here with the button that's on the bottom of the AM6. So we're going to turn our gameplay noise back on and see how much of that it reduces, and also listen for the sound quality to see what happens there. All right, so this is with the noise reduction turned off and the sound coming from right here in front of the mic on the table. And now this is with the noise reduction turned on. I have not changed the volume of the sounds coming from my phone here. Let me know down in the comments how effective is the noise reduction and what does it do to the quality of my voice. And now the noise reduction is turned back off. Yikes. And now we're going to do a quick comparison to some other USB condenser microphones as well as the Fifine AM6. So this one will be in the comparison, but we are going to make this a blind comparison. So first, you'll listen to the audio samples and let me know down in the comments which one you think sounds the best. And then I'll reveal all of the microphones, but of course you already know the AM8 is going to be in there. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. All right, which one of the mics was your favorite? Did you decide yet? All right, here are the mics. Microphone A was the Maono DM30. Microphone B was the Razer Siren V2X. Microphone C was the Fifine AM6. Microphone D was the Elgato Wave 3. Microphone E was the Fifine AM8. And microphone F was the Sennheiser Profile. All right, now before we move on, here's just one more little comparison of the noise level of each of those microphones. I recorded the dialogue sample on each one, followed by some silence. Then, of course, I normalized that dialogue to minus 16 LUFS. And then here's what the silent portion of that recording sounds like, with an additional 10 dB of gain added, just so you can kind of hear what the noise floor sounds like. All right, now let's talk about pros and cons for the AM6. To start off the pros, in general, I think it does have a very usable sound profile for general use while gaming, streaming, for video calls, that kind of thing. It's not super smooth in the higher frequencies, but it's also not really harsh either. I do like that it has a bit more clarity than the AM8. There's more of that presence, I think, than the AM8, but it also doesn't sound over boosted to me. The self noise of the AM6 is also a little bit lower than the AM8 when I did the comparison of those silent portions of the recordings I did earlier. Now, that wasn't super scientific because that included the ambient tone of the room, but just comparing how all of those microphones recorded the sound of the space as well as their own self noise, the AM6 came out just a little bit quieter. So that's a good thing in a live situation, especially where you're not going to have the opportunity in post to go use some better quality noise reduction. Speaking of the noise reduction, I will mention that in the cons. Now, another pro here is that you've got 24-bit conversion, which isn't a huge deal, but it lets you record with a little more headroom than 16-bit without worrying too much about bringing up lots of noise. So that's nice, and not all of Fifine microphones in this price range offer 24-bit conversion, so it's nice that this one has it. I also like the feature of having the dual outputs that you can assign to your game and chat, or really any two audio channels on your computer. For example, if you've got some music playing and maybe a chat channel like Discord, you can assign each one to the outputs on your computer and then blend how much you want to hear of each one. The headphone output also has pretty good sound quality. It's not super noisy, it's fairly quiet, but it's also not the loudest. I had to turn it up most of the way for comfortable listening level. And there's also kind of an annoying thing with the monitoring, the real-time monitoring of the mic that I'll mention in a second in the cons. And lastly, I would say the pop filter they provide is fairly effective. It's nice to have a pop filter included with a condenser mic because several other options on the market don't come with a pop filter, and condenser mics usually require some type of protection. Of course, speaking past it at an angle always helps as well. All right, now let's talk about a few cons. Getting back to the headphone monitoring, when I first tested out the AM6, I thought I might have gotten a bad unit here because I wasn't getting any of the mic. I couldn't get any sound at all. I was turning all the knobs, doing anything I could to try and hear something, and I had nothing. Then I discovered that you actually have to enable it in your audio settings. On a Mac, this is in the audio MIDI settings. You have to find the input channel and then check the box that says through in order to hear the monitoring. And on Windows, that's a little different. You have to go into advanced settings from the audio settings, and then you have to unmute the microphone to actually hear it. I'll show on the screen where the path to that is on Windows. It is strange to me that this was not already set this way out of the box. And the instructions also don't mention it at all. And for me, it actually randomly reset itself a couple times and turned it back off, so I had to go do that again, which is frustrating. Now, another con for me here is the noise reduction. I honestly think it just shouldn't have been included here. It is effective at reducing noise, but it's also effective at making the mic sound pretty bad. I honestly just wouldn't use it, even in a live setting when you're not going to be able to use noise reduction in post. I personally think the trade-off here is just too great to use it. And the last con that I have is that it didn't perform all that well with the bump tests, whether it was bumping the desk or bumping the boom arm. In general, especially the boom arm test, which is a bit disappointing because you want to have this relatively close to you so that you're not picking up as much of the environment. But getting it on the boom arm, a lot of the bumps seem to resonate quite a bit in the microphone, which is a little disappointing. So would I recommend the AM6? Well, it kind of depends on the context of the question. If you are looking at the AM6 and the AM8, then it's really just a matter of comparing the features and the sound profile. The AM8 has a bit more bass and it's a little bit less crisp, but it also has an XLR output that can be used at the same time as the USB output, while it does not have a monitor mix knob or 24-bit conversion. They're both nice options for the price, so it's really just a matter of which one better meets your needs. But then in a broader sense, it kind of depends on your budget. For a similar price, I would recommend the AM6 over, for example, the Maono DM30 from our test earlier. I actually do like the look of the DM30 a little bit better, but I like everything else better about the AM6. I think it has a more clear sound that's less muddy. I like that it includes a capacitive mute button rather than a clicky push mute, as well as the monitor mix feature. The Razer Siren V2X has nice sound quality and lower self-noise, I think. And it's pretty frequently discounted on Amazon since it's been out for a while, so you can actually get it now for $70 to $80 pretty regularly. But it's a pretty bare bones mic with only one physical control knob for the gain level. That knob is honestly not that great. It seems to make huge changes in the gain with very small movements on the knob. And it's also geared more towards Windows users because Razer doesn't have any Mac software, but they do have Windows software. Now, if your budget goes a little bit higher, options like the Elgato Wave 3 are a solid choice because it has all of those features, nice build quality with better shock rejection, and great software included for both Mac and Windows. But at the end of the day, for the price, the AM6 is another fine offering from Fifine with just a few downsides. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the AM6 down in the comments. Let me know if you picked one up for yourself and how you're liking it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech+Gear channel, and while you're here, why don't you check out this video? I'm sure you'll like it.